On this week's Hey Lizzie episode, we are talking about how I edited my last Instagram photo. Because you guys asked for that, so that's what we're gonna do. Because I want to do things that you guys want to see. I'm actually at Chris's parents' house. We decided to come here for the weekend so we could spend a little time with them because we are actually going on a couple trips. We're leaving on Thursday for those trips, so I really wanted to get this out before then. So here we are, and I'm filming at Chris's house. This is actually one of our director's chairs as well. I don't know if you can see it behind me. My last Instagram post you guys really liked. Here's the finished photo. And a couple of you guys were asking how I did it and whether it was one photo, and it's actually two photos made into one. So I'm gonna start at the very beginning. I'm not going to get too into detail on the colors I used in Lightroom and how I edited it in Lightroom. But the real magic is what happens in Photoshop. So that is where I'll be going into a little bit more detail. It's pretty simple, honestly. So I'm really excited to tell you guys. So let's get into it. This was taken with two photos. We have our background photo, which is the true long exposure. And then we have, I'll call it the foreground photo. So that's the one where I'm posing here. And as you can see, the shutter is still pretty slow because it was taken at night. But it's a bit faster so that you can still get all of the sharpness in me. First step, get a tripod, set up your tripod, get the framing you want, and take your foreground photo. You'll have to take the foreground photo, obviously with a faster shutter, and there'll be slightly different settings because you'll want the subject to be properly exposed. And then keep the camera in the exact same position, do not move it, otherwise this won't work. And take your long exposure. So switch up the settings for a long exposure. So now you have your two photos. This is what we started with, 1 and 2. And the first thing you do is edit them, and I like to do most of my editing in Lightroom. So I started with the background photo first because I wanted to figure out what look I wanted for the entire photo, what colors I wanted, and then I would try and create the best match for that in the foreground photo or in your photo of the subject. If you just copy the same settings onto whatever is your foreground photo, it could end up looking really blown out, but I'll show you that in a little bit. So first of all, I'll go to the edited version of this photo. Bam! There it is. This is the photo edited. As you can see, there's some retouching to be done. I want to take out this overhanging thing up in the corner. There's some garbage on the street. We'll get rid of all of that. These are the colors I want. This is what is going to suit my feed right now, some purples and some teals. And I even made the reds a little bit orange. But anyways, let's look over here and I'll show you guys a bit of what I did really quickly. So luckily the camera we were using has a high dynamic range. So I could really push the settings on this. So the highlights I brought all the way up, shadows I brought all the way up, whites I brought all the way up because I was having a lot of fun, and I really like boosting the clarity on these kinds of shots just because it makes everything look really sharp and contrasty. The vibrance I brought up a bit, saturation I brought up a bit. The true effect of this starts to come in is in the colors. So I turned the reds a little bit orange, and the yellows I made a little bit warmer as well. It looks like I wanted no green tones, so I dragged that all the way into the blue area over here. Blues I wanted a bit more teal, like a bit greener, but not green, a greeny blue, because that's my thing. All of the magenta tones I wanted a bit more red and warm. Looks like I brought the saturation down on the reds. I wanted all the yellows gone. Luminance, if there was any trace of yellow left, I just brightened it up completely and that's, I think, most of what you're getting in the windows here. It looks nice and glowy. Aquas, I wanted super bright. Blues, I wanted super bright. Purples, I wanted super bright. Just because that is what's gonna make all of this area over here really pop. And then the split toning. So I had a purpley tone over here and a blue tone in the shadows. Balance is -18. And I desaturated the shadows a little bit, it looks like. That's basically what I did here. That was like the fastest summary ever, but that's basically what I did. The tricky part here was getting me, let's go over here, was getting my image here to a spot with the color that I felt matched the background. I had to color it completely differently. I made this background, all the settings I used for the background, a preset. So let me just find that. And I'll show you that if I actually applied it to this photo, my shirt looks super blown out. The blacks look a little bit too light for me. It's just, it doesn't look that great. So I kind of started from scratch and just I went back and forth to each photo a lot, and you kind of have to eyeball it to get it to a point where you feel like it's gonna blend, but you're still getting all the detail in there. My shirt is still a little bit overexposed, but because when you look at the long exposure, there are so many bright whites, I didn't feel like I could completely bring down all the highlights on my shirt and have it still look like it fit in that photo and it matched. When you're pretty happy with your two photos, I just right-click on the background photo and I just go to edit in Photoshop. I exported my foreground photo, or my photo of my subject, out of Lightroom, and I'm just gonna drag it into Photoshop on top of that other one and just place the file. So make sure that your foreground photo is on the top and your background layer is on the bottom. So if I reveal that, you can see the background behind it. They match perfectly because it was on a tripod and in the exact same spot. Click on your photo of your subject, and if you just cursor over, it'll say add layer mask. So you've added a layer mask, and then all you do is hit Command I, and you've inverted your layer mask. So basically what this means is, so you can no longer see the top photo, so the photo of your subject, but what you're gonna do is start revealing that photo underneath of it. And you do that by clicking the paintbrush tool, and you're going to toggle to select white as the color. And I mean, initially you could start with either a hard or soft brush. I'm gonna probably go with a soft one and just increase the size. I'm a little bit messy at first just because I want to reveal everything, and then I'll go back in and tighten up the outline. So let's just start uncovering the photo underneath. Basically this mask, everything that's white, it's using as a mask to reveal the bottom layer, which is super cool. So you're not just revealing me. Don't forget, you have to use my shadow or it'll look super photoshopped, so you have to leave the shadow in, which we'll get to later. That's another kind of pain, but just be generous, get everything out so you can see it, and make sure that your subject is completely uncovered. So now you can see me. That's a good start. Next, make your brush even smaller, and this is when you're gonna start zooming in and being a bit more precise with your uncovering your image. So toggle back to black over here, and you can kind of paint back in your background layer and just go a little bit closer to your subject. Make sure you're bringing in that whole background again. That's why my opacity is still at 100. And just start bringing that in. Again, don't forget to leave the shadow in here underneath the crotch area. You can take out, and I'm not gonna go through the whole thing with you guys because I can kind of explain this as I go. So, and then zoom in again, even more, and make your brush a little bit smaller. And you can keep the soft brush here, and you're really gonna go around all the edges. I mean, I could even zoom in more. So this will take a little bit of time. So maybe put on a show in the background that you like while you're doing this. Maybe one you've heard before, like Friends, so that you don't actually have to watch it, but you know exactly what's happening. And if you wanna be really precise, just keep making your brush smaller, go around all the edges, and then you're good to go. At that point, you're probably realizing, wow, blending in this shadow at the bottom is super annoying. It took a while to blend that in with the background to a point where I was happy with it. I still think I probably could have spent more time on it. But anyways, bring the opacity down, and I'm just gonna make my brush a little bit bigger. And start, no, probably even more. even a lower opacity, and just start bringing in that background layer, because you're just trying to blend the two. Because if you just go around that shadow, it's gonna look too harsh in my opinion, because there's almost a softer shadow around it. So you kind of have to do both. So that'll take some time. Play around with the opacity, and maybe one time you go over it and it's at 8%, and then go over it again and it's a little bit, the opacity is a little bit higher, and just take some time to blend in those two layers so that that shadow is nice and even. It's already starting to look a little bit better. So yeah, I just increased it. Now I'm going around the edges here. And there you go. But then that looks a bit harsh, so maybe I'll go back and increase it, and so on and so on. The next thing I did was I just took the stamp tool over here, and if you guys have never used the stamp tool, this is gonna save your life. And you're gonna hold Option, and what Option does is it selects a portion of the image that you want to copy, and then you can paste it on the next section, and it works super, super well. Make sure while you're doing this, you've selected the bottom background layer. And as you can see, you've now selected that, so you hold Option, select, and now anywhere you would go, you would paste that portion of the image you've selected. So I'm just gonna cover up this cigarette, and I'm gonna line up those lines and paste it, and just paste, and same thing with this like weird piece of paper right there. I don't know why we didn't just move this at the time. You spend a lot of time doing that. It will take a while. You'll end up with a really great photo that looks a little something like this. I've blended in the shadow here. All of that weird dirt on the sidewalk is gone. There's a lot of empty space here now, especially now that I've taken out that weird overhang in the corner, that I want to fill with something. So I chose stars. So I bought a bunch of these different layers to bring into it. So I can just click, and that has a couple stars, but it's too few. I want something else. Let's try this one. I ended up picking one that had a galaxy in it. So yeah, select the brush tool, and now you can click on these layers and drag them to where you want. So I think I put the galaxy one like about there. And then I took the stars and I brought them a bit higher. But I obviously don't want all of these stars around here overlapping the building and me. So all you have to do is bring down the size of your brush, and you'll hit Option, and that little plus becomes a negative, and you can just start erasing some of these stars that are on top of the building. My stars are looking a little bit too bright for me, and that galaxy is a bit too intense. So just click on whichever one you want to bring down, and just bring down the exposure to where you're happy with it. Same thing with the galaxy one, select it, and just drag down the exposure a little bit. So that looks a lot more natural, as you can see. And then that was my finished photo. Again, this was a really quick video, a super quick little tutorial, and I really want to make sure that you guys are getting the content that you want, so that's why a few people asked me about this, so I just thought I would give you a quick rundown on how I did it. So I really just want to keep the dialogue open with you guys, and please let me know if there's anything you want to see in particular, any questions you have that I can address in these videos. And now we're at the fun part. So if you like this video, please hit that like button below. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. It would mean so much to me, and I would love to see you guys here every week, and I'll see you guys next time.